Hello everyone, and now welcome to a game. This game is going to be between VietnamGosu and NightEnD, taking place here on Melting Valley version 2.0. NightEnD has spawned as, well, the undead player over here on the top right hand side of the map. Meanwhile, on the bottom left, we have Vietnam's Gosu spawning under the name Angry Acolyte. Should be a great game here as things get underway. Let's go ahead and just head over to that 2-minute mark of this game. And for all of you guys, a little bit of a heads up. I'm not quite sure what my casting schedule is going to be. With the kids at home and starting a new contract work, I'm not really quite sure how work is going to affect my casting. So, I'll continue to cast as much as I can, but things may get a little bit difficult from time to time. Alright, it is going to be a Crypt Lord coming across from VietnamGosu. Meanwhile, NightEnD opening things up with a classic Death Knight. Down goes a pig, up come two skeletons, wait for it, there you are. Up come two skeletons, and now going after this Ice Troll Trapper. So, Death Coil there, Acolyte now also making its way down, gonna get ensnared. Also took an axe as we're looking at the damage still racking up onto that Ice Troll Trapper there. Off to the north, we still see 5 over 5 Acolytes. The Acolyte, just doing a little bit of scouting. Nothing really to note here as the Crypt Lord is going for that go wide strategy. No Scroll of Town Portal, sold it, picked up a Rod of Necromancy, a Sacrificial Skull, and also, that Ritual Dagger. That Acolyte, where is he? Is he going to actually make his way back over here to this position? It doesn't look like it, so we actually have 7 Acolytes out by VietnamGosu. So one still scouting Acolyte now making its way back here. Meanwhile, the Death Knight has been pretty much creeping on its own, or with just some skeletal minions, and should actually be taking to a fast tech to tier 2. 3 ghouls on that lumber line, with Crypt Fiends now slowly marching their way out onto the battlefield. So NightEnd's strategy, skeletal minions, and earlier Crypt Fiends. There goes an Impale. Death Knight could be in trouble. Is he going to try to double down? And, well, he does go ahead and flank down here. Are we going to see another Impale? We are not. Acolytes are across here as the skeletal minions perhaps going to try and put pressure on the haunted gold mine before any armor is available on it. Already down to 240 hit points. Crypt Lord trying to finish off these skeletal minions, may be able to get a little bit of bonus experience as well. There's only, I believe, 2 Acolytes left. And, well, that skeletal minion left, and that's going to get taken down here. All right. Death Knight going after the Null Poachers here. Gonna go after the Null Brute. Death Knight has used up a good amount of its mana already, down to one more Death Coil, but will get to level 2. And now NightEnD with that faster movement speed on that Unholy Aura should be able to get position and maneuver its way to level 3 fairly well, especially with the help of those Crypt Fiends. Crypt Fiends are going to be the major damage dealer. No surprise there. Another Rod of Necromancy most likely. Wants to do a little bit more creeping. And perhaps going to try and creep out to this mercenary camp, even though there is a rock golem there. So 3 Crypt Fiends, 3 skeletal minions, and perhaps a little bit more creeping action. Crypt Lord down to the southern side here, going to go after the Ogre Magi. We can see the Haunted Gold Mine nearly completed. Don't look at that health bar. Look at this bar here. And it will now be done. So some quality of life improvements, showing how much time is going to be left in upgrades and training and things of that nature. So that's something that a lot of players were able to data mine, and something that wasn't available. No one had the foresight to introduce it back in 2002. Ogre Magi going to get finished off here. Talisman of Evasion. And, well, with that, the Death Knight will be very close to level 3, while the Crypt Lord himself is already at level 3. Claws of Attack +8. And, well, looking to clear out some more of these creep camps here. All right, Carrion Beetle has absorbed quite a bit of damage. We're looking at more damage still racking up here. There goes another Carrion Beetle. There is a Shockwave. More beetles popping up. the ghouls maybe want to try and retreat, doesn't want to take another shockwave. The Crypt Lord down to 460 hit points. There's another shockwave again, and it almost finished off a ghoul coming across the back here. We do see healing wards have now been dropped. Stone Maul Ogre, that is not the typical level 3 Ogre. This is a Stone Maul Ogre, very difficult to take down, 1,060 hit points, and it will give that Crypt Lord, well, that much closer to level 4. Coming back through, I believe the Death Knight wanted to go. Yes, going to be able to finish off another Acolyte there. Crypt Lord is out. Death Knight now sitting at level 3. That Crypt Fiend is going to end up staying alive as another Acolyte gets taken down. Healing Ward, all right, being positioned down to the southern side here. I believe the Crypt Fiend of NightEnD was able to snipe that down quickly as the Crypt Lord wanted to, well, be able to fight on this battle. This is a bug-out battle here. Carrion Beetles going up against Crypt Fiends as the Death Knight says, you know what, I may need to back out of this position. NightEnd's Crypt Fiend escapes at 69 hit points. Well, Blight regeneration provided kindly by VietnamGosu, allowing that Crypt Fiend to regenerate hit points fast enough alongside that Unholy Aura to stay alive. So, level 3, level 1, going up against simply a level 3 Crypt Lord. We are teching the tier 2. There is no Altar of Darkness yet. That needs to be resummoned as we see down on the southern position for that second hero. Alright, so NightEnD trying to perhaps stretch that advantage even further, get to tier 3, grab that Orb of Corruption, get level 3 on that Lich alongside some Obsidian statues, and with that Obsidian statue, be able to easily Frost Nova down some of those units. Off to the north here, Granite Golem, that may get picked off, and oh, my apologies for forgetting the patch notes that Taurens now have resistant skin, making them well, resistant to charm and some of those other abilities as well. Yeah, sometimes I forget about the patch notes and I just need to see it in game. What a memorable memory, me screaming at the screen going, why aren't you trying to charm those Tauren? And people are like, hey, resistant skin, remember that? I'm like, oh, you mean that game after 20 years that was changed by Blizzard? Yeah, how could I forget? How could I have forgotten? All right, Lich down to the south here, going to clean up the remainder of these Murlocs. Death Knight actually coming back around. He's going to take a little bit of this experience, but here in this situation, I don't mind it as much as the Death Knight is also closer to level 4. There's often questions about like, hey, when should you know to pull off one of your other heroes so that you can get your second hero more experience? And the question really becomes, how close is that extra 42 experience that the Death Knight's going to shift the tides of battle? And in this case, it actually is. Well, VietnamGosu actually Goblin Zeppelining a bunch of units, even a Goblin Shredder, able to take down, even take down that Haunted Goldmine. I absolutely missed that there. A beautiful play. Goblin Laboratory, watch the minimap. Even now, after so many years of playing and casting WarCraft 3, forgetting to keep track of the minimap, to see all of this action, really difficult to spot this single blue dot on top of all of this blight here. Goblin Shredder is going to be able to get it again. It does. Once more, able to snipe it down. That is absolutely huge. Crypt Fiends, they do not have web. And without web, that is a huge issue. Bunch of penguins hiding outside along the map as well. Wow, so here on Melting Valley, well, I don't know. Introducing penguins here on Melting Valley, is this climate change or not? A couple of igloos somehow still able to stay alive here as we're looking at, well, the Goblin Zeppelin doing that tactical hit. Now, VietnamGosu has done quite a bit of work here. He's getting the tier 3 now. We are looking at Black Citadel, Lich, Frost Nova trying to, well, perhaps shoot up and take down that Goblin Zeppelin. A lot of gold mining lost here. Every minute is 600 gold lost. And, well, NightEnD is just kind of stagnant. This is going to give VietnamGosu 1,200 additional gold. And just because of the sheer mining time, and perhaps get a little bit further. Death Knight now also out on the battlefield. NightEnD coming back across here. Going to spot all of this once more. Are we going to be seeing a couple of gargoyles backing away? Yes, we are. So all those units back away. Death Knight will get up to level 4. Lich will be just shy of level... Well, will be shy of level 3. But the main story is this haunting of this gold mine. How much gold was lost? 7570 compared to well, 6,000 right now, so we're looking at about 1,600 gold lost and counting. So that number is just going to continue to grow and grow until those acolytes are able to jump inside. Don't forget the lost cost of actually trying to re-haunt that gold mine as well. So major loss here as we're looking at, well, VietnamGosu trying to fight back the other way. All right, level 4, level 1 going up against level 4, level 2. Lich very close to level 3. Damage still racking up. Are we going to see a low hit point Ghoul get death coiled? Should be getting death coiled. Not quite sure why it isn't. Down to the 35 hit points. And no, he is back on Blight and going to be okay. Goblin Shredder of VietnamGosu as well. Well, we're looking at the Illusion, just trying to dive on in there. Not much is going to be done. Obsidian Statue is now out. And, well, VietnamGosu still going for a large number of gargoyles. All right, Lich will get up to level 3 off of this creep camp. That's going to be important. Whether or not we see a Dark Ranger or a third hero by NightEnD, that's going to be a question as well. No Warden going to get cleaned up here. Level 4, level 3, Death Knight with that Ring of Regeneration, dual Talismans of Evasion. Well, they do nothing, or at least one of them does nothing, as that item will most likely just be sold. All right, Death Knight fighting alongside that Crypt Lord. This is a situation where the Crypt Lord doesn't need to really be in the battle. Giving level 2 to the Death Knight, or giving a little bit of additional experience to the Crypt Lord, doesn't really help all that much. And, well, once you get to level 4, once you get to level 5, no more experience will be given either. And you really want that Crypt Lord nearby for those red creep camps, for those creep camps where the Death Knight can't be creeping out by itself.
A player's forces are under attack.
Alright. Couple of easy, well, creep kills here once more. The corners of Melting Valley are starting to get haunted. VietnamGosu already taking that there. 4,600 gold compared to 64. Yep. Very drastic difference in the amount of gold mined. But that does mean that, well, VietnamGosu only has about, what is that? 3,000? 7 minutes of mining left on that main base down on the south. So we'll come back to it at 21-minute mark, see what happens there. But VietnamGosu is still sitting in a low upkeep, and he's purposely banking, well, I think he's going to start banking a bit of gold and then try to do a timing attack, where he knows that NightEnD cannot do that much. NightEnd's Expo here, 12,500 gold versus 85 here. That's a 4,000 gold difference, 7 minutes of mining, as this haunted gold mine is going to get easily taken out. Level 2 Death Knight, level 1 Lich. That Lich, however, very hard hitting. As we're going to be looking at a little bit of a fight there. There goes in a major impale. Are we going to see a death coil onto that Lich? Yes, we are. That death coil onto that Lich, trying to keep him alive. Also had the potion of greater healing used right there. I believe the timing was a little bit too aggressive. There goes another impale. There's another death coil. And all of those units are just continuing to retreat back. All right, Lich continuing to, well, try to fire away. We're going to see a couple of NightEnd's obsidian statues get taken down. There goes another impale. Are we going to see another impale? Yes. So just throwing your hands up in the air, so to speak. Both impales just tossing up those units. 45 supply compared to 54. NightEnD somehow, well, lowering the gap here, but VietnamGosu, is he going to be able to actually escape here, or is he going to actually end up below upkeep? He's now in low upkeep, so 48 supply compared to 45. He needs to start spending that gold. Crypt Fiend's getting taken down. 57 supply compared to 42, trying to train up more, as the, well, Lich is of NightEnD is now sitting at level 3. So level 3 Lich is going to be doing some major damage here. Crypt Lord does have enough, or perhaps going to have enough for another impale here in just a moment. There's another impale again. Well, Frost Nova. Oh, wow. Frost Nova. I thought that would have been enough to finish that off. That is not the case. The Death Knight escapes at 9 hit points. And, well, what is NightEnD going to do here? Retreat back with these obsidian statues. Not going to bother going after. Is he going to go after that one? No, it does not look like it. So 4-3-1 going up against a 4-2-1. But the real story is still the gold mines. New patch incoming, by the way. So replay is going to be broken in around 2 weeks or so. I'll try. I will try to cast as many as I can. But as I mentioned earlier in Metaphysics, you were not here yet. I'm trying to find a time to cast while trying to get set up in a new position. Free time is difficult. On the phone with IT, trying to get username and passwords and those things all sorted. So, yeah.
A player's forces are under attack.
Down on the southern side, Lich takes a boulder to the head. Granite Golem Creep Camp. Oh, this might be a perfect opportunity for NightEnD to, well, get in between, perhaps get the damage onto these rock golems and all of these units here. And they're looking at one rock golem is going to get taken down easily. Yes, it is. That's going to give level 2 to the Crypt Lord. There goes a major impale. Lich somehow dodges all of that. And we're looking at engagement here. All right, Air Army of VietnamGosu. This is looking really good for VietnamGosu here. Meanwhile, Deathclaw going to try and, well, save a low hit point Crypt Fiend. We're trying to web a couple of those units down. So 50 supply compared to 68. There goes a Crypt Fiend. Day late, dollar short. Death Coil just a split second late there. And that is 400 hit points that, well, would have been useful. Lich of NightEnD now sitting at level 4. Death Knight sitting at level 4. Wants to get to level 5. Units still trying to retreat back out. Are they going to be able to burst anything down? Crypt Lord, what is it doing? It is still in this battle. Going to take a Death Coil. Going to stay alive. And still continue to battle it through. All right. Well, Crypt Lord could be in trouble. Down to 49, 17 hit points. Death Knight gets up to level 5. Death Coil not going to be in time as the Crypt Lord of Angry Acolyte, or VietnamGosu, now gets up to level 5. There goes another impale. Death Knight now seriously in trouble. Is he going to be able to get away? Frost Nova, Death Knight continuing to, well, try and duck, dodge, dive, and weave through this army. Death Knight with that ring of regeneration, generating hit points like a madman, alongside of that obsidian statue, just providing so much cover. So many webbed down gargoyles here by the Crypt Fiends. That is incredibly important. There goes one Crypt Fiend. There goes another. Death Knight of NightEnD still alive here, but it doesn't look like it's going to be alive for long. That's going to be some major problems. NightEnD trying to double back around, double through, and, well, still somehow keep this army alive. 45 supply compared to 63. VietnamGosu should really be looking to get a little bit more units out there on the battlefield. Right, you're sitting in low upkeep with 1,000 gold in the bank. You need to spend that gold, get it up to about in that mid 70 supply range at the very least to stretch your army size advantage. 65 compared to 50, just not enough, especially when you consider the extra acolytes you have here. You're running on 3 bases right now, so you have an extra 10, or you have an extra couple of acolytes overall. Yeah, no, Metaphysics, I would agree. Undead Mirror, much more interesting than it's been in the past. You're starting, you can actually have viable different starting heroes. And by having viable different starting heroes, you're going to have different end game results. It's not just about who has the level 5 Death Knight first, constantly trying to Death Coil and save the rest of the army. We have a level 5 Death Knight by NightEnD and a level 2 Death Knight by VietnamGosu right now, who's trying to keep these units alive. NightEnD needs to save that Crypt Fiend, though. He needs to get, well, every ounce of usefulness out of all of his units, as the, well, Frostworms and Gargoyles are just trying to put in pressure. There goes another Impale, but, well, well, one Impale deserves another. Who's doing it better? That's the question. 49 supply compared to 73. VietnamGosu finally letting that economic advantage translate into a steady army size advantage here. All right. Now, NightEnD purposely trying to stay in no upkeep. And once more, we see a Scroll of Town Portal by VietnamGosu. So NightEnD has constantly been able to put pressure onto one or two of the heroes of VietnamGosu, force a TP, force a resetting in the battle. And remember, he is only mining in low upkeep. So the gold difference right now is about, what, 12 gold a second compared to 14. or compared to 21. That isn't nearly as drastic as it potentially could be when you're looking at the number of bases. Add on that, we're perhaps going to see more and more acolytes on this gold mine, and it could potentially be 20 gold a second compared to 14 gold a second in favor of NightEnD here in just a moment. VietnamGosu has had plenty of advantages. Now that gold cache that he's been sitting on is now gone. 2-0 upgrades compared to 3-2 upgrades for NightEnD. So NightEnD, well, his units are a bit more powerful than his counterparts. All right, 2-0 upgrades there. We'll see how this all unfolds as well. A couple of gargoyles being forced up back up here. 76 supply compared to 50. Army size, well, this is about a about a 59 supply army compared to 49. So, well, there is that slight difference in supply count as well that can add up. Abominations also being added in as we're looking nearly level 5 at the Lich. Level 3 Impale now online for NightEnD, as well as all the creeps on the map have been cleared out. What I mentioned earlier, the Crypt Lord, well, taking some of that precious experience away. The Lich, if it was at level 3, this would be so much better for, well, VietnamGosu. Level 3 Lich means level 2 Frost Nova, which means, well, being able to burst down and pick off low hit point units. We don't see that now as NightEnD finally goes into no or low upkeep, as VietnamGosu takes the takes a fourth base and the final base on the map. All right, 4 bases versus 2, or 4 gold mines versus 2 total gold mines. Is VietnamGosu just going to win this game, well, purely on economic advantage? That's going to be the question here, as we're down to 1,000 gold left at the main base. So 2 mining bases going against 2 mining bases right now as VietnamGosu gets this one set up. We can see that there is a necropolis, well, getting summoned. Almost said warped in. Getting summoned up over here, and once that is on the line, we could see a Scroll of Town portal. All right. About 6 minutes of mining left across here. Crypt Fiend's going to try to put in pressure. NightEnD realizing he needs to, well, try and defend here. And now here in comes the battle. All right, big bit of damage. There's a couple of webs bringing down some of those gargoyles. There goes some impales. Impales are going to be the key here. Who's going to be able to impale better? That is the question. All right, VietnamGosu pushing in pressure, but is he pushing in pressure? Yes, in the right spots. Needed to go after those obsidian statues with those frostworms. Frostworms quickly getting webbed down, though, so unable to chase those obsidian statues any longer. All right, obsidian statues holding these armies together. That is going to be key. We're looking at a frostworm about to get taken down. No, there's a death coil, but, well, remember, only a level 3 Death Knight, not that level 5 for a 400 hit point heal. Destroyers. NightEnD now has a destroyer out here onto the battlefield trying to go after some of these targets. Are they going to go perhaps focus on a couple of these obsidian statues? 63 supply compared to 56. Gargoyles trying to finish off some of those targets. The Black Citadel still poking in the back here, as NightEnD is just trying to get every little bit of usefulness that he can. There's a death coil, a last minute departing thing to try and stay alive as NightEnd's Crypt Lord gets taken down. That's going to give level 5 here, or level up here, level 3 on that Lich now. NightEnd's, well, Lich now with a Potion of Invulnerability does have another Frost Nova ready. Is the Death Knight going to be in trouble? No, Potion of Greater Healing. There's that Frost Nova. Death Knight may be forced to use a Scroll of Town Portal. He did not use it in time. Oh my gosh, Death Knight not using it in time. One obsidian statue actually escaping away at 4 hit points, but losing the that Death Knight. I thought yeah, he lost the Death Knight too, right? Yeah. So Lich is getting resurrected. Death Knight is out of commission, and NightEnD taking a battle at home, really coming out ahead. All right. VietnamGosu is mining here, and this is going to be a major problem. We are looking at 3 mining bases versus 1, but the heroes That is the story right now. Where are the heroes out here on the battlefield? Death Knight getting resurrected. Lich may come back over. There's an Impale. Lich could have... Oh, we're looking at a little bit of problems here. Well, Death Knight trying to back away. Does have a potion of greater healing. Are we going to be looking at some more Impales? There's another Impale trying to get in some damage. The damage needs to go onto the Death Knight, but the Death Knight also has an Invul potion. Death Knight here already used a Scroll of Healing. Frost Nova from the Lich. No Frost Nova from the Lich. Level 5 Lich trying to chase that other guy down here, as the Lich is now down to, well, 1,300 hit points even. NightEnD wants to regroup here. A couple of Crypt Fiends going after some additional targets again. NightEnD putting in pressure, and NightEnd's Lich is going to end up coming back and being able to regroup once more. VietnamGosu, right, does have the Lich back now. Does not have an there's that obsidian statue. Needs an obsidian statue to heal up that knight.